There is a silent war that many of us never talk about. A war that doesn't involve bombs or bullets, but words and wounds. A war that happens in boardrooms, bedrooms, and sometimes within our own hearts. This is the war between good and evil. And often the most dangerous thing about evil is that it doesn't wear a mask. It smiles. It holds your hand. It calls itself your friend, your lover, your teacher, your mentor. But deep within, it holds no love, no empathy, no light. This speech is not about pointing fingers. It is about protecting your light. It is about becoming so aware, so deeply in tune with your soul, that when evil enters the room, your spirit whispers, "Be still. This is not love. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved in purity." And today, we will uncover how to spot an evil person not so you can hate them, but so you can set yourself free. They wear a mask of charm, but their eyes never smile. There are people who will enter your life with what seems like the purest of intentions. They'll say the right words, act with grace, and move in a way that makes you feel like they are exactly what your life was missing. But something in your spirit doesn't rest. You feel a little uneasy, but you can't explain why. That's not paranoia. That's protection. When someone's words are filled with light, but their presence feels heavy, listen to your body. When someone gives you praise, but stares at you like pray notice. Evil does not always appear grotesque. Sometimes it looks stunning. It wears expensive suits and beautiful makeup. It laughs easily. It holds the door open, but it does not love. Charm without empathy is manipulation in disguise. When someone showers you with attention but never truly sees your soul, that's not connection. That's control. It's easy to be deceived by flattery, especially when you're healing. But the truth is, love never forces you to earn it. Real love isn't a performance. It's peace. The eyes always tell a different story. Look into them long enough and you'll see the hunger, the emptiness, the calculation. An evil person studies your weaknesses, not to support you, but to use them. They ask about your dreams, so they can later discredit them. They act interested in your wounds, but only to find where to dig deeper. Pay attention to the moments they laugh at your pain. Catch the silence when you succeed. Notice the forced applause when you grow. These are signs of someone who doesn't want to uplift you, but control you. You weren't created to perform for someone else's ego. You were created to rise. When someone constantly makes you doubt your own reality, that is not love. When their charm turns cold the moment you set a boundary, it was never kindness, it was bait. And when you try to speak up and they twist your words, realize this: you are not too much. You are just too awake for their illusion. Your soul will always know when you're being touched by darkness. That tight feeling in your chest, that's your inner knowing. That sudden withdrawal of your energy around them, that's your soul protecting its sanctuary. Don't question it. Honor it. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't have to tolerate what feels off just because it looks right. Appearances lie, but the energy never does. Evil can borrow the language of love, but it can never carry the spirit of it. It can imitate compassion, but it will never birth healing. Trust what you feel when words don't match energy. Trust how you shrink when they enter the room. Trust the way your body tenses when you hear their name. You are wiser than you think. You are more intuitive than you've been told. Evil often hides behind social masks. It knows how to play roles. It knows how to make itself indispensable. But remember this: just because someone is needed doesn't mean they're good. And just because someone is good to you in public doesn't mean they treat your heart kindly in private. Learn to read between smiles. See beyond gestures. Listen past the tone and hear the message. Charm without sincerity is a weapon, and evil people carry it like a blade made of compliments. Do not let charisma confuse you. Not every sweet voice carries sweet intentions. Not every helping hand is clean. Protect your softness by discerning not what people say, but how you feel around them. Your inner knowing is guardian. You don't need to explain your instincts. You don't need proof to leave what drains you. When the spirit is unsettled, that is the proof. And when the eyes never match the smile, that is the mask beginning to slip. They thrive on your pain and disguise it as help. There are people who offer help not because they want to lift you, but because they want to keep you small enough to control. They pretend to be the healer while secretly pressing on your wounds. And what's most terrifying is that they do it so gently, so slowly, you begin to think you need them to survive. Their words feel like medicine, but their presence makes you sick. Their advice sounds logical, but it leaves you confused. That's not wisdom, that's gaslighting. And the longer you stay around them, the more you question your strength, your sanity, your very soul. When someone uses your past against you while claiming to support your growth, they are not your safe place. They are your shackles. Real help doesn't belittle. Real support doesn't make you doubt your progress. Real love doesn't need to remind you of your brokenness to prove its relevance. Evil thrives on your dependency. It needs you to feel weak so it can feel powerful. It will break your spirit, then offer its hands. It will shake your confidence, then offer you direction. But every time you lean on it, it shifts just enough to keep you off balance. You'll notice the cycle. Every time you get stronger, they get quieter. Every time you smile, they bring up the past. Every time you dream, they warn you. They don't want you to fall, they want you to stay still. Not for your safety, but for their control. Pain becomes a tool for them. Your tears are not met with comfort, but with condescension. They say they understand, but they twist your emotions into evidence that you're too broken to ever thrive without them. That's not love. That's evil in disguise. They don't empower you, they guilt you. They don't listen to understand, they listen to collect. They'll quote your lowest moments back to you when you finally gather the courage to stand. And when you confront them, they'll say, I was just trying to help. But help never feels like humiliation. Their help comes with invisible strings. You can feel the debt they expect you to carry, the gratitude they demand, the obedience they assume. You begin to edit your pain to make them comfortable. You begin to doubt whether you're even worthy of love without condition. You are. You don't owe anyone your silence in exchange for assistance. You don't need to stay close to someone who uses your healing journey as a weapon. Love doesn't keep score. Love doesn't remind you who saved you. Love doesn't make you feel like a burden. An evil person disguises their harm as healing, so you never learn to walk alone. But you can, you will, and you must. Because healing doesn't happen in the hands of someone who wounded you. No matter how softly they speak now, watch who gets nervous when you start loving yourself. Watch who gets distant when you begin to shine. Evil fears your wholeness. It fears your voice. It fears your freedom. So it pretends to be your foundation, hoping you'll never realize you were the strength all along. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to be free. Free from guilt disguised as guidance. Free from care that carries chains. Free from those who find joy in your dependency. You are not hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't handle your light. Let that truth sink in. Let it guide you as you rebuild. Let it remind you, anyone who makes you feel like you're too much is simply afraid of how powerful you'll become without their leash. They fear your strength, but pretend to admire it. Evil does not always attack you with insults. Sometimes it disguises its fear in the form of praise. It will tell you that you're amazing, but it will ensure you never believe it. It will applaud your courage, but plant seeds of doubt every time you try to grow. That is how it survives by keeping your power under its thumb. They'll tell you you're gifted and then mock your ideas. They'll say you're beautiful, but joke about your appearance when you're not looking. They'll say you're capable, then step in and do things for you just to remind you that you're not needed. That is not encouragement. That is a slow erosion of your soul. An evil person pretends to uplift, but their energy always weighs you down. They notice when you shine and it makes them uncomfortable. They want to be near the light, but not if it exposes their own shadows. So they do what they can to dim it quietly. Watch what happens when you speak boldly. Notice how they shift when the room listens to you. See how they change the subject. dismiss your thoughts, or suddenly become passive aggressive. That isn't coincidence, that's control. They want to be the center. Not because they have a vision, but because they fear being invisible. Your light reminds them of everything they are not. So instead of growing beside you, they sabotage you in silence. They question your every move under the mask of just looking out for you. Their admiration always comes with a ceiling. You can rise, but only to the height they're comfortable with. Go beyond that, and they withdraw. They criticize. They disappear. They sabotage with sweet words and sudden distance, and you're left wondering what you did wrong when all you did was grow. You begin shrinking without realizing it. You downplay your wins. You silence your opinions. You make yourself small in rooms that were made to witness your greatness just to avoid their disapproval. That is not love. That is oppression dressed as support. Real love celebrates you. Real friends get louder when you rise. Real connection does not fear. Your wingsit encourages them. Anyone who makes you question your own shine is not your tribe. They are your test. Do not let their discomfort become your cage. Do not confuse tolerance for admiration. Some people stay close, not to celebrate you, but to contain you. And once you stop needing their validation, their mask begins to fall. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need to dull yourself to be accepted. And you don't need to apologize for blooming just because someone else is afraid of the sun. Your voice is not too loud. Your dreams are not too big. Your calling is not too much. Stand tall, even when they try to cut you down with subtle silence. Rise anyway. Speak anyway. Grow anyway. Because every time you do, you break the lie that you were ever supposed to play small for someone else's comfort. They enjoy watching you struggle, even when they pretend to care. One of the hardest truths you'll ever have to face is this. Some people are not uncomfortable with your suffering, they enjoy it. They may not laugh in your face, they may not dance when you fall, but they smile inside when you're down. They mask their delight behind concern, but it's not care, it's consumption. They ask about your pain with curiosity, not compassion. They probe your struggles not to help, but to gather information. They want access to your wounds so they can feel powerful next to your brokenness. This is how evil works, quietly, with a twisted sense of satisfaction. You'll notice how energized they become when you're going through something. They suddenly want to talk more, check in more, be around more, but not to heal, just to be closer to the drama. It's not support, it's surveillance. They are addicted to seeing you weak. When life is good for you, they seem distant. They don't celebrate your peace the way they monitored your pain. And when you finally share something joyful, their response is flat, deflective, or completely dismissive. That's because they were never rooting for your recovery, they were rooting for your collapse. They don't offer solutions. They don't bring clarity. They don't provide light. They simply listen, nod, and vanish. And later, you'll hear your struggles repeated in places you never shared them. That's because your vulnerability was never safe with them. It was a story for their amusement. This is evil cloaked in empathy. It sounds like concern, but feels like exposure. You walk away from conversations with them feeling lighter or more exhausted. That's how you know. Real care brings peace. Fake care multiplies your pain. You don't need to bleed in front of people who only show up when you're on the floor. Watch who disappears when you start standing again. Watch who ghosts your glow. Those are the ones who only love the version of you that was broken, manageable, and easy to feel superior to. When someone feeds off your struggle, they will never be comfortable with your healing. Your growth threatens their illusion of control. Your rise makes their quiet envy louder. And your joy makes them uncomfortable because they don't know how to love you whole. You deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your wholeness, who get excited about your victories, who stay just as present in your joy as they were in your tears. Don't confuse interest with intimacy. You're not here to perform your pain for anyone. You are not obligated to keep people around who seem to grow happier the more you suffer. You are not here to be a character in someone else's tragedy fantasy. You are here to heal, rise, and thrive. At the end of the day, you don't need to carry guilt for trusting people who wore masks. You don't need to blame yourself for not seeing the signs sooner. Evil doesn't always come roaring like a lion. Sometimes it comes cloaked in charm, dipped in compliments, and hidden behind familiar smiles. But once you see it on, your soul whispers, something is wrong here. You must listen, because your heart knows, your body knows, your peace knows. And anything that robs you of peace in exchange for confusion, silence, fear, or control is not love, it is manipulation wearing a polished disguise. When someone consistently wounds you and still claims to love you, remember, love does not leave bruises on the soul. The patterns don't lie. The way they divide instead of unite, the way they deny responsibility and twist your truth, the way they show up when you're weak but disappear when you're rising, these aren't accidents. These are behaviors birthed from intention. And when you start naming them, they start losing power. To spot an evil person is not to become bitter, it is to become wise. It is to refuse to let your light be dimmed by those who thrive in darkness. It is to choose discernment over desperation. It is to finally believe that not everyone who walks beside you walks with love in their heart. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to shut the door without an apology. Because your soul was never meant to survive in a battlefield. It was meant to bloom in peace, to rise in truth, and to shine without fear of being dimmed. So trust your intuition. Pay attention to the discomfort. Watch what people do when you shine. Watch how they respond when you hurt. That is how you see their truth. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some were only sent to teach you how sacred your energy really is. And now that you know how to spot them, may you never again mistake evil for love, not even when it smiles, because you were never created to be broken down by darkness. You were created to walk boldly in light, even when it means walking alone. And light always exposes what the darkness tried to hide.